Family. Welcome. It's 8 o'clock. Y'all know what that means. It's time to talk. First and foremost, before I even get started, I want to, take a moment just to recognize some of the things that are happening, to some of our people and even to people outside of the sterile processing world. Prayers and thoughts definitely go out to the people in Los Angeles and California in general. Yeah, I know that those fires and stuff have affected a lot of people, and we want to let you know from time to talk that we are thinking about our brethren out there. And in addition to that, I am, as y'all can see, I'm not in my normal study, but I am on location in Virginia, where they're dealing with a crisis as well. They've been without water in parts of Virginia for like 2 days, and it's disrupted a bunch of the processes and stuff here. So my thoughts and prayers go out to the people affected over there as well. But yeah, just tragedies that keep, showing us the resolve that we as a people have, and things that, affect our everyday life that you don't normally think about, for us that aren't affected by fires, or for us that haven't had to go through, a loss of water for days. To my understanding there was the state of emergency called, and it was under burn, boil precautions and things like that. So definitely thoughts goes out to the people of California and the people of Virginia. Again, from us here at Time to Talk and Knowledge and Nonsense. Hey, family, welcome back. Just to let you know, yes, season 6 is upon us. And boy, what a show we have for you tonight. In putting this season together, there were many different avenues I wanted to go down, just to say, how else can we help sterile processing? How else can we show efficiency? How else can we show innovation? How else can we help with quality? And one of the things that came to mind was, hey, you're a Lean Six Sigma black belt. What does that mean? I know people see their initials and people know what that is, but how can it actually help people in sterile processing? So I'm putting the show together. I decided that one of the episodes I wanted to focus on lean principles and what that actually means. So how can lean actually improve efficiency in a sterile processing department? So we talked about collaboration amongst different entities that actually make up your day-to-day process. So that came to my mind. I'm like, well, one of the biggest partners and collaborators we have is infection control, infection prevention, whatever it's called in your facility. And who else did I think of but the foremost, as one person told me, the queen of infection control, infection prevention. And I was like, I'm gonna get somebody on that I know goes into different departments and actually has a real voice and is actually working with sterile processing to make sure that they are efficient, they are at the forefront of patient safety, and that the quality aspect is there. So I went out and I reached out to a good friend of mine, and I know y'all seen her. She's everywhere when it comes to IP, just in general, advocate for the sterile processing community. And if you've ever had a question about anything as it relates to infection prevention, sterile processing, and where the line is and how we need to get to a certain point, her door, her text box, her phone is always open to be an advocate for you, be a resource for you. So I brought her here to Time to Talk, just so we can get to the bottom of, hey, lean principles in sterile processing and how those lean principles can help improve efficiency. So none other, sterile processing family, Time to Talk family, can we give a big warm welcome to none other than Jill Holdsworth? Yay! And the people go, wow. Jill, how are you?
Good. That was the best introduction I think I've ever had in my life.
As many times as we've talked, and I tell people this story all the time, from the big shout out I got out to your speech when you were on stage at HSPA, like, hey, go pick up my friend's book.
And then you moved on me. You went to the back when you're supposed to be right in front of me.
Was it? And then I was like, hey, I didn't know she was going to do that, but I'm at the back of the room. But just to get the love from you there, and then like every time we see each other, it's always a great interaction. And I just want to say thank you again for that. And, I know that you'll be at the forefront when book number 2 comes out.
Oh, yeah.
And it's on the way. It's on the way. But for the people who don't know Jill, I don't know who that could be. But for the people who don't know Jill, could you tell the people a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So right now, my title is Manager of Infection Prevention at Emory University Hospital Midtown. But I actually got my start in healthcare as I have a master's in exercise physiology. So I love to tell that part of my story, because everyone thinks that you have one path to get into everything.
Right.
And you have to be a nurse to go into IP. And that's so not true. There's a lot of folks in SPD that are going into IP now. There's people that are lab techs. There's microbiologists. There's people from all walks of life that are going into IP. So basically, if you want to do it, you can. So I was an exercise physiologist doing cardiac rehab, and I started doing IP in 2009. And, I got board certified. I put the work in to get my CRCST, which the 400 hours took more than 2 years, but I did it. So every time we talk about lowering the hours for IPs, I strongly disagree every time we talk about that,
Right.
Because it's important. So I did that in 2007, got my CRCST, and just got my CHL this past year, because my dedication and my love for SPD and being an SPD, that is really my favorite part about my job, and just working with HSPA. So I've been doing this about 14 years now, I think was how it works out. But,
Right.
As an IP, you can kind of gravitate towards any part of our job. And that's just kind of the part that I gravitated to the most. And I've met some amazing people like some of you listening here, and that have helped teach me along the way, because as IPs, we do need help along the way to learn your craft.
Well, we appreciate you actually taking the time to do those little things there, just the basics of getting your CRCST, getting your CHL, so where these people come from when they come with these questions. Even from the basic level of sterile processing, you have that certification. So when people come to you with those type of questions, you already know where they're stemming from. And now having the CHL from a manager's or leadership perspective, now you see how all of it ties together, from just coming in to actually honing your skills and now going into leadership. So having both of those, you actually can communicate on a level with both sets of people and it be informative. It's not like you're guessing.
Yeah.
You know exactly where they're coming from. So family, in honor of Jill being here tonight, and I know we told you last week about the contest and how you can actually get into the drawing for the $25 gift card. So tonight's keyword is going to be IP. So when you comment with the IP, and then you'll get into the drawing and then see if you're our lucky winner of the $25 gift card. So that's in honor of Jill being with us here tonight. So Jill, this season, efficiency, quality, and innovation. When I say those things, what does it mean to you?
When we talk about being efficient, that means bringing our best standard work to the department. And it doesn't matter where you work. We all want to be efficient. We all want to do whatever the best way is to do whatever process we're doing. And I do want to share kind of the first times I ever heard about this lean thing. I admit I kind of rolled my eyes like, oh gosh, here they go talking about these Japanese words again. It was for the car industry. Like, why are we having to talk about this? And, this was years ago when they started introducing it into healthcare,
right.
And they were kind of like forcing us all to learn it, And so whenever you're forced to start doing something, you kind of think like, I don't want to do this. This seems like a lot of extra work, but they say it's going to make it faster and more efficient. And
right.
I guess we'll do it because we have to. So It's interesting because once you actually learn what the lean principles are about, you learn that it takes kind of a little bit of time to set up some of these lean things that we're going to
Yes.
talk about. But once it's set up, it's really helpful, and it helps you organize. It helps you. You'll probably hear me say standard work a lot.
Right.
I'm a huge fan of standard work and having it written down and creating standard work, because having standard work, and when you think about that in sterile processing, if you had every tech performing standard work the same way at the decon sink, think of how many less errors you might have, because they have a set standard work that they know, they've been taught, they've been trained to, and everybody needs something written like that to refer back to. So then if you say, why did you do it this way? And they're like, well, I've never been taught. I've never been told. And then you can go back and say, well, we've trained to our standard work. And here it is again, if you didn't see it the first 5 times we talked about it. But having that written standard work, it's so important. So lean is not just about cutting out steps, but it's about removing waste. And the word for waste in the lean world is muda. So there's all these funny words in lean. And so as you learn about all of this, and as you start digging into it, you'll find all these funny words, but that one is one of my favorites. So it's all about eliminating waste, wasteful steps, wasteful processes. And we'll talk some more about all of that. But being efficient is eliminating waste, doing things that are only necessary, and then looking at things like, what can you deselect? We say that word almost daily in my department. What can I deselect from my to-do list or from my task list? And are all the things I do on a daily basis necessary? Every step I take with my feet in decon or in assembly, is that necessary? What can I remove, and how can I do that?
So that's what I was going to ask you. But first I want to give a shout out. I saw Shamu Anthony here. I saw Sarah Vincent. I saw Carl Malone. You have people here, Jill, they're showing up. I see the IPs going out. I saw the queen
I
out
see you
there.
guys.
See, you have the people showing up.
Remove the muda. I love it.
So there you go. We got to remove the muda.
I feel like that's a t-shirt coming on.
I think we should do it. We can do it. We can market the muda. Let's do it. But that was, you were getting into what my part of that question was, like, so when you think about these lean principles and then how they actually apply to sterile processing, like you just said, can we eliminate steps in decon, the extra walking? Can we do that on the clean side? How about even case cards? Is there a way to make these things lean, or, remove the muda? So when you think about lean and the principles that surround it, do you see actual practical ways that lean can be applied, that it doesn't disrupt everybody's normal processes?
Yeah, and it's a great question to say, how do you implement lean but not interrupt processes? Because it's almost like you have to interrupt processes to get to a better process. You can't just snap your fingers and say, let's do this in a leaner way, snap my fingers and poof, it just happens. It doesn't happen that way. You do have to put a little bit of work in if you're going to truly implement a lean system, because you have to have somebody that, one, knows lean principles, who can observe. Here's another funny word. And this one I feel like I hear all the time. You have to have somebody that can go to the Gemba, and Gemba means where the work is done. So if we're going to
the Gemba walk.
You'll hear people say the Gemba walk. So if it's me that's leading as an IP or a quality person, if I'm leading the lean project in decon, I need to be present in the Gemba to watch what happens first. Like, that's step one. I can't go in and say, I'm going to help you improve how you use the IFUs in decon without just spending time in the Gemba and watching people work, to the people that do the work, and seeing, how it works first. So it's almost like you have to have some disruption to make it better. And so I feel like the word disruption is actually a good word, because we want to disrupt the system so that we can improve it, almost kind of like tear it apart and put it back together in a better way, but with less pieces, because we want to have less steps.
So in saying that, is that why when we talk about people going through and getting their Lean Six Sigma, there's not a lot of rush to do it, because you have to then think about how you're going to implement it and not just be a disruptor when you think about the process itself?
Yeah. I mean, as far as getting your certification, it's great to go through the certification because you learn how to put all these tools into place. You learn how to do all of these different things to get you to the same goal. And there's so many ways that you can do that. And one of the things that I think is really helpful in a place like decon, and I've done it in several places throughout the hospital, is a spaghetti diagram. It's like if Kenneth, if you're in decon, I would literally like have a layout of decon and put my pin right there and kind of like follow you on my paper as you walk around and see all the places that you're going. And is all of that movement necessary? How can we decrease that movement? And it ends up looking like a complete mess when you're done. But I need to see like where can I decrease his movement or make things closer to where he's working, or just get rid of steps altogether so that you can be more efficient, save time, save steps, and maybe you won't even be so tired at the end of the day.
And that's a great point. I do have a follow-up to that question, but I'm going to do that right after this quick commercial. But we're talking about the spaghetti diagram. We talked about the Gemba walk and how all these things tie together. So we're going to tie it one more piece of that bow when we come back from this commercial.
And I like that commercial, that music.
So just in that, you saw RST automation. We're talking about lean processes and efficiency and quality. Just if you haven't seen that demo live, please reach out to them to get a live demo of that system. And Jill, one of the things we are talking about this season is innovation. And you got to just make sure that that's one of those things. Like, it's something that can help you in these processes, but people talk about, I'm not ready for AI and the things that go with it. But I know you've seen the RST model up close and personal. So can that be an effective tool in the lean process? We're going to get to that, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention that RST Automation, one of our sponsors, is diligently giving people tools to help them with their quality, efficiency, and innovation in these spaces. So we're going to come back to that. But as we were leaving, and let me just say this real quick. I see that Sarah put one up here. She said, you got to stop the hoarding and clean up your spaces. So we're going to open some more cans of worms. People hoarding stuff, and, the spaces are cluttered because people are trying to hold on to all of their things. So is that a component of trying to be lean, and what can we do about that?
Yeah, if I can touch on that for a minute, I'm so glad Sarah brought this up. And hey, Sarah, so glad to see you here. But she mentions 5S, and 5S is such a cool tool. It seems so simple, but it's such a neat tool that is actually a lean principle. But 5S's are sort, set, shine, standardize, sustain. Some people will say different S's with that, but basically it's like clean up your stuff is basically what a 5S is. But you have to go through your stuff in this order, and it's basically like sort your stuff and then figure out what you need to to keep. And a lot of people also put with this visual management. We do this a lot in my hospital where we first start to sort our stuff, get rid of stuff we don't need. But then what we do is we get a picture of something. So let's say chemical storage in your SPD, where you specifically want that chemical storage. You take a picture of what it looks like, you put it on that shelf, cabinet, whatever, so everybody knows this is what is supposed to go there. So then if paper towels end up on that shelf, you know that that is not where they're supposed to go. So those kind of visual management tools are also really good too as part of your 5S. And everybody knows exactly where things are supposed to go. That you also know when things are empty, what is supposed to be restocked there, which is really helpful.
So in saying that, and that leads to my next question, why is standardization important in sterile processing? And how does it relate to the lean process? Going through that Sigma course, I get exactly what you're talking about. Once you identify what's supposed to be there and you standardize the process, hey, this is where your cleaners go. This is where your brushes go. This is where your paper towels go. And then you see something out of one of those places. Accountability to that. How do you maintain that once you've done it?
Yeah. So, well, there's a couple big things that you just said there. So, first, why is it important? So let's talk about that first. Why is it important to standardize?
Why is standardization important?
Yeah. So there's first standardizing how you store things, how you check things, how you do things like that with your supplies. That is a huge thing in and of itself, and not just where you put things, but are you grouping things together? And one of the funny things that I talk about in some of my presentations is you'll notice that grocery stores do lean things all the time. If you ever notice, like by the tissues, you'll see cold medicines and you'll see nasal sprays because they're putting things together in groups because they know that it's going to be easier for you to pick up things if they're grouped together. Or you notice that the queso dip jars are by the tortilla chips.
Right.
So, think about it that way. We're grouping stuff together that we're going to use together. So why are you stocking things all over the place when you need one thing over here and then you have to go to the other side of the department to get something else? You need to create less steps, get rid of that waste, put things together. So think about those things next time that you're running all around the department. Think like, okay, I just had to go here for this brush, but then I had to go over there for that brush. Why aren't all of the brushes together? Or why don't we have all of these things together? So there's less steps. And why aren't they close to the sink? Why are they on the exact opposite end of the department? So constantly think about how you can decrease the amount of steps. That part is why it's so important. The steps matter, and it decreases the errors. If you can group things together, it's going to decrease the amount of errors that you have because people are going to have everything they need right there because we are humans and we are going to do whatever is easiest. That is why we put hand hygiene dispensers by the gloves, because we know that if somebody has to walk an extra step to use hand hygiene before they put on gloves, they're not going to do it because they don't want to put in extra effort. So it's not just about eliminating waste. It's because we know how the human mind works and we need to make it as easy as possible.
I wanted to touch on a few things. I saw a couple of people say something. One, they said, hey, when you're checking things or you don't check things, that's how you end up with all those expired supplies. Mm-hmm. They appear out of nowhere. And then, like Sarah said, there's a place for everything, and everything in its place makes it easy for all staff, that visual management. Yeah, you're right. If you have a picture there that says this is only where the cleaners go and you see paper towels there, something's out of place. So that visual management and making sure that what's supposed to be there is there. I like your example. And even Rebecca was like, when you check the bins, all the things you can find. And I've done that several times. I'm going around and check workstations and you're like, why is this even in here? like, why is it not in the tray that it's supposed to be? And why is this in there? So things like that. But yeah, down to like, here we go. There's that favorite answer that everybody has. Carol had to say it, didn't she? It is that because we've always done it that way. One of the most infamous statements ever uttered in a sterile processing. But
you know, I get that answer a lot in my role. And so we've come up with some creative answers for that. Like, well, that's nice, but we're going to do it this way now. Or, well, did we do cell phones the same way that we did 30 years ago? No, because they didn't exist, or I don't remember when cell phones came out. But anyways, everything gets updated and changed, and we find better ways to do things. But it is hard. But yeah, and I love that Rebecca said check the bins, but because if you ever actually empty out those bins and look in the bottom of them, sometimes you find some unwanted dust bunnies and just all kinds of weird stuff. And so if you're overstuffing the bins with junk, hoarding, if you will, in the bins, then, those are the types of things that contaminate the things that we're using. And those are also the things that surveyors find, because those are the easy things for them to like pick up a whole thing of brushes and be like, wow, that's a really dirty bin. Do you ever clean it?
But are people thinking that they're helping and being lean by overstocking the bin, making sure that people don't have to go in these different places to get a brush? Or, hey, if we keep it stocked this way, then, we won't run out. So people do think they're helping sometimes when they're doing this. So how do we manage that part of it? Like, the staff think they're helping. Nobody ever lets it get to the bottom, so they don't know those dust bunnies are there because you're overfilling the bin from the beginning. And somebody did mention, like, that's when you have the expired stuff.
Right.
You're just piling supplies on top of supplies. Is that beneficial?
I think we have to keep reinforcing the first in, first out type of mindset as well, and why we do that, because I see this on the nursing floors all the time too. We have these little tiny supplies and needles and caps and things, and you just keep dumping more on stuff. And then you never get to whatever's at the bottom. And when surveyors come, they stick their hand in those bins and pull out whatever's at the very bottom and the very back, because they know that we do this. And, kudos to people for trying to be helpful and trying to make sure that we always have our stuff. But you should have a plan for what is the par level going to be on a daily basis. And you can hopefully figure that out by your daily volumes and whatnot. And if you're always running out, then you need to increase it for whoever stocks your supplies. But you shouldn't just be dumping as much as you can, because it can cause all sorts of problems.
Denard is here.
Denard
he says, hello, folks. So Brian is here. I saw Brian jump in. So I have a question right before I have to go to this commercial. I'm going to ask you this question. Give you a second to think about it. And when you come back, we'll get your answer. Can you describe a time where you identified one of those bottlenecks in a sterile processing workflow, and what steps did you take to eliminate or reduce it? You identified the bottleneck, and how did you get them to reduce it or eliminate those steps altogether? And we'll get her answer when we come back from this commercial.
We have had at least 12 leave in the past year.
Our staff turnover problem is reaching a crisis point.
Honestly, I think we're really feeling the need for a structured onboarding program at this point.
We need a program to guide them from day one.
It's really getting harder to attract and retain skilled professionals.
Our younger hires are feeling really lost, and they're afraid to ask questions.
Turnover is brutal.
We just don't have the time to educate.
We need something to ease that transition.
It's become a real struggle to get them certified.
Everything we touches the patient.
Someone's loved one or family member relies on us.
But I think e-learning before they hit the floor would be a game changer.
Welcome back, family. Again, if you just saw that commercial, incision.care, make sure that you actually go request your demo education tool. They've changed the way that we're going to be, as we talked about, standardizing the education piece. It's so that everybody's learning all of the steps the exact same way. As Jill said, standardization can change the processes, but it takes us having a way to implement. And there we go. Make sure that we're actually doing that. Make sure that we're actually getting people the education that we want. For everybody in the chat, make sure you drop in the IP. Make sure you put IP as a comment so we can get you registered for the drawing for the $25 gift card at the end of the show. And again, if you do call incision.care or you request that demo, make sure you say Time to Talk sent you. And, we're going to get you something special on the back end of that. Make sure you let them know where you saw that commercial. Jill, right before the break, I asked the question, name a time where you identified a bottleneck and what steps did you take to eliminate it or reduce it?
Yeah,
how did we do this?
I haven't thought about this example in a really long time. And what's funny is at first, I think I created the bottleneck because it was it was an orthopedic center of excellence that I used to work at. And when we were reviewing all of the IFUs, we realized that basically everything had to be in the Sonic. As you guys know, we had one Sonic. And so I said, we have to use the Sonic. It's required. We're using the Sonic, et cetera, et cetera. So when I started telling them that, of course, decon got completely backed up. So that's why I say I created it, because I made them start following the IFUs. And so we started making a business case. We started kind of laying out how many trays do we have, how many cases do we have, and how many Sonics do we need? And so we had to, and I was the only IP in the facility, and this was really my first big IP job. So this team taught me pretty much all that I knew about SPD. So we worked really closely together with the OR, and we came up with a plan of how many Sonics we really needed if we were going to do this and not create that bottleneck and eliminate any wasteful steps. And we actually ended up adding 4 Sonics to that department to make sure that we could work efficiently, not create any extra waste or any time constraints. And that I had actually kind of forgotten about that. But
my question, because you said it, my question, and it's off the subject, but it's still on the subject of quality and efficiency. Does every tray need to go through the Sonic?
Well,
did you always say that conclusion?
I would always say to check the IFUs.
I just wanted to hear you say it, because people are saying, I was at a facility and they put every tray in the Sonic. And when I said, why are we doing that? They just looked at me like I was crazy. I was like, does it need to go in the Sonic? Is it in the IFU that it goes in the Sonic?
Yeah, I would say there are a lot of things, especially at an orthopedic center, that needed to go through the Sonic per the IFUs, but I always say, let's check the IFUs. I think there's probably some that a lot of folks are not putting in the Sonic that probably should, because they might be skipping it because they're like, we don't have time to do this. Let's just skip the Sonic step. And that's not okay either. So, and again, that's why standard work is so important, because it's there for a reason. It's in the IFU for a reason. And we have to make sure that we're following the steps that we need to. But yeah, if it's not needed, it's not needed. But if you have a place that doesn't have enough Sonics, then that's something that you have to advocate for to make sure that you're doing what's best.
And that's where our IP experts come in at, is to be the advocate to help you with that. If you don't know, like I said, that is part of what Jill says. Part of her function is she goes in and identifies some of these things that you may need, that may be the voice that gets it over to that C-suite for you, is having another advocate saying the same thing you're saying. Hey, we are by default not adhering to the standard policy, whatever the case may be, because we don't have ABC, and that's where her voice comes in at. Denard has a question. Wait a minute, let me
Oh,
see.
it went away.
Let me get the question. Well, let me back up. Rebecca did say one of the things that you alluded to is that you can't paint over the cracks or just put a band-aid on certain things. You actually have to do things correctly. Like when people put a band-aid on it, it does lead to a bigger problem later down the road. So when instead of going to IP and getting people involved, we just do the quick fix and never go back to the root of the problem. Brian said it's like the logical thing is like if it doesn't have a home, if it doesn't have a place, then it doesn't have a home. So that's when you go back to, he said he uses the same method at his house to declutter. If it doesn't have a place, then it doesn't have a home. I like that. like if it doesn't belong anywhere, then why do I even have it?
Wish
So
my kids could use that philosophy with all of their toys and junk, but I don't think they understand lean yet.
I think like I said, all of these are really good ones, and I like it. Brian, my department made a visual aid for how to prepare. Said keep it simple. I like it. So back to Denard and his question of the day. How much does the department culture of SOP shape your lean outcomes, whether it impedes the end result or enhances it? Oh, department culture. He threw one in there. So when you have how does that shape your lean when you have a department culture that changes things?
I think this is a great topic. You know, you always hear of like the storming, norming, performing kind of talk. And I feel like, you know how like I talked about in the beginning, I think Denard missed it, how I always used to roll my eyes whenever somebody would talk about lean, like, oh, this is so useless, because it was like everybody was saying it. And I feel like every department's going to go through that in the beginning too. So depending on how bad or good your culture is, they're going to take it differently at first. Like if you're a department that's already like quality improvement is ingrained in your SPD department, or you're already you already do lots of things to like improve your workflows and all. I think that adding in lean projects, it's going to be a piece of cake because you're already going to be used to doing things like this. Right. But if you're a department that's not used to being told, hey, we're going to do quality improvement or process improvement, and we're going to get rid of Muda, and we're going to do gimbal logs, and we're going to do all these things with funny words, then they're going to be really resistant, and they're going to go through this storming period first. And unfortunately, those storming periods can last quite a while in departments, depending on culture. But that's where you have to have a really strong leader to kind of look out for that stuff and coach people. And unfortunately, sometimes you have to say, we're doing this whether you like it or not. And this is why it's important. And proper training really matters here, because if you're not trained on why we're doing lean, why is it important that we standardize our processes? I always say the why behind everything we do is so important. You can't just tell somebody we're doing this because I said so. You have to tell them why. And if they don't understand the why behind lean, it's just going to seem like some other new idea that's going to fade, and they're not going to put any stock into it. So you have to really let people know that this isn't some new age idea that you just came up with yourself.
I saw the Time to Talk panel, and Knowledge and Nonsense said storming, not preform, like preforming, like storming, forming isn't pre-norming. Like you want to get something normalized, you do have to go through that storm. Yeah. You still have to start formulate that process. But that goes back to something you said earlier in the show, is that do people want to disrupt the norm? Is that something that some managers may not be comfortable doing that because they have a limited staffing or they don't have those necessary resources to do things that right way. So Denard even says, I've seen departments with lean projects and they think they did something great, but they really didn't. So can a lean be lean but not be efficient?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the same thing, Denard. I've seen people that they do a project using lean principles, but it didn't do anything, or there were no results, or, you know, but they say, oh, we're doing lean projects. So I think that's also where if you're not used to doing lean projects, having somebody that knows how to measure success in lean projects, or really like helping you through it. We have lean project engineers is kind of what they're called, that kind of help us go through some of them when we're first starting out in projects. That helps us know, do we have strong objectives, or are these weak ideas for action plans? When we go through some of our incident reviews, re-education is always considered a weak intervention, because we can say we're going to re-educate people and it's a weak intervention. If we go through a whole lean project and all we say is, oh, we're going to re-educate people and that's going to be our big project, that's not going to work. You have to actually, rearrange, put things, like we were saying, like put things in different spots that they're currently stored in. Do visual management. Look at how people are doing their movements. And then you have to reevaluate, see if what you're doing is even making a difference. Is it helping? If not, you need to adjust or make changes and then go back and reevaluate again. Like lean projects aren't a one and done, because if not, they're not going to be sustainable. They're going to fall apart. And then all the work that you did is going to be for nothing.
So to that point, and both of y'all kind of alluded to it, if I do all of this lean management, I get all of these nice new things in place, but I can't have any tangible results, is it even doing anything? Is that when I abandon the whole lean idea because nothing changed?
It would depend on the project, but I wouldn't say you would have to abandon. Of course, this is a theoretical project we're talking about, but there are lean projects sometimes that you go through the whole thing and you really didn't improve the metrics that you're following, and that, I mean, that's happened to me before too. And you're really discouraged. Like, wow, I put all this effort into it and I didn't actually improve anything. But that's where you have to go back to, like, what was your original goal statement, your aim statement? What did you choose as your actions, or we call them tests of change, or pilot projects? And how can we adjust? What were we expecting and why didn't we get there? So you have to go back and evaluate to see, why didn't we get to that goal that we wanted to get to? And how can we? Because something went wrong.
But that's back to, so if I go through the process, I standardize, I did this, and I don't have the result. And the staff, again, we're trying to keep the staff engaged, right? So once they see that nothing changed and nothing happened, and I try to come back with a different idea, how do you keep that motivation? How do you keep that engagement there?
You know what I would do, and I do this a lot. We are very big on engaging the frontline staff, and that is really, really important. We have to make sure that we as leaders, or even leaders of the project, aren't the ones making the decisions. So you have to make sure that you're engaging the people that are doing the work, and that's part of the Gemba walk. And you have champions that are doing the work. And so if you go through this whole project, nothing changes, then you go back to this frontline champions and start over if you have to. And I love the comments about you have to measure it, but that's part of the lean principles. You have to have like SMART goals. They have to be measurable. They have to be attainable. You have to have a time frame. So that's part of the lean project too. And then if you don't meet the metric, or you don't see any improvement, at least you have that metric. You have something that you're measuring. And that also helps you if you do meet your initial goal, which has to be attainable, which is important. You can't say, I'm going to go from 5% compliance to 100 in 2 weeks. Right. Whatever you're measuring. But you have to make sure that it's reasonable. And then you continue measuring that same metric moving forward. So when we're talking about sustainability, I think no matter what people are doing, what department you work in, what project you're working on, the follow-up and the sustainability of any project, I think, is one of the things that people fall down on the most. And you have to figure out, when are we going to pull data again? If we met our initial goal, is it going to be quarterly, monthly? Where are we going to report it? Who's going to look at it? And then what are we going to do? Is there a team that's going to continue meeting to look at this metric?
I think Sarah gave me my newest shirt. You can't improve what you can't measure. I like that. I think that's gonna be a t-shirt too. Jill, we're gonna have so many t-shirts on the market.
know.
I think it's just gonna go crazy. Like we're gonna have
I love it. I
IP
love
t-shirts
t-shirts.
everywhere. But yes, great content, great suggestions for people on how to improve their processes with the lean, adding in that lean factor. Denard tried to stump us, but you came back at it. So I'm
Don't
impressed.
challenge him,
I'm
please.
impressed with that. But we definitely gonna get a little bit more deep into the lean process once we come back from this break. Again, put IP in the comments just to make sure that you're in the drawing at the end for the $25 gift card. Let me see those comments. IP, and we'll be back with more Jill Holdsworth right after this commercial. Welcome back. Again, thank you, big thank you to Incision.care for being a sponsor, RST Automation being a sponsor. Definitely go and request your demos. Let them know that Time to Talk sent you. Go see how you can get some improvements to the processes you're already doing in your area. Just make sure that you reach out to them to get a demo to see how we can help you improve your efficiency, your quality, and you can get some of this new innovation that's coming out your way. And also, Kathy Martin, if you're in the chat, please let me know you're here. For those that weren't aware or didn't see the end of last week, Kathy Martin won the drawing last week. So we want to make sure that she gets her winnings. Because if you don't know, you do have to be present the following week to receive your prize. So if Kathy Martin is here, let us know you're here so we can make sure you get your prize. If you win tonight, you do have to make sure you're here next week in order to get your prize. Sarah just made a good comment there. Whenever you're trying to do all of these things, the team has to be a part of that problem solving. I think you said it, like keeping them engaged, keeping them a part of the process is not saying, hey, you're doing this because I said do it. Having people in different positions to help you make that project work. So one of the things I want to ask you, I know there's many different examples out there. So can you give me or share an example of a lean tool or methodology that you've used or seen used, whether that be 5S, Kaizen, Value Steam Map, and Lean Six Sigma, that you've implemented in a sterile processing department? And again, what was the outcome that you were trying to achieve, or what was the outcome that you did achieve, if they differed?
Yeah, so I know we talked about 5S earlier, so I won't dwell on that too much. But 5S's can be simple, easy, and make a huge difference in your departments. So if you're not familiar with 5S, I would definitely look it up, Google it, and using that with those visual management cues, even like do one closet at a time or one storage area at a time, and use it in your office. I think I saw Sharon say that too. Like, yeah, my office could use a little 5S thing as well. But, it's such a great way to think about things. Like, use it on your pantry at home. It's such a great way to just clean up your department. But I think value stream mapping is one of my favorite ones. We use it in my department a lot too. And the way that it works, a value stream map, and we do it a lot with Post-it notes. It's super simple to do, and you just put a Post-it note for every part of the steps of a process, and then you can use a different color Post-it note for like every wasteful step that you feel like you have, or every part that could be like an improvement. You can figure out what you want to do with the Post-it notes, but it's so eye-opening when you get a group of people together and say, how do you do this? And what is your part in this? Or like what is, when you do assembly, what are the main parts that you're doing or you're doing? And it's so interesting to see how everybody's doing it different. And so going back to that standardization and why it's so important, because we want everybody doing certain things the exact same way. We want people inspecting in a certain way. We want people using lighting magnification for certain things. And if we're not doing that in a standardized way, we're missing steps. And
Right.
so you don't have to standardize every single little thing so it feels micromanagey, but there are certain parts that a value stream map would be great. And just doing bite-sized things like assembly for certain instrument sets, I don't know, and just take a couple people and work through that, or, pick up from clinics, how do they come and pick up, and how can we make that better and easier and more efficient so it doesn't take time away from people in the department? Just small things like that can make a huge difference with your efficiencies.
And I think the important part of what she said is there are many different tools out there. So we're not saying one is more efficient than the other. There are many. So do your own research, whether, like she said, whether it's 5S, which is very simple to use and implement, Kaizen, or for the people that are Lean Six Sigma, just finding what works for you based on what you're trying to accomplish. I think that's where we get into when people say, oh, I've heard people talk, and some people stop at the first level of Lean Six. I'm using Lean Six as an example because I'm a black belt in Lean Six. But you hear people say, oh, I got a green, I'm good. Oh, I got a yellow was hard enough. I'm gonna stay right here, I'm straight.
Yeah.
But it's always those next steps of what you're missing. And I'm not saying go out there, rush and try to get to the black belt the next day, but going through the whole program, you get to see how all of it ties together. And I think that's where we miss a lot of people, because some people do stop at the white. You know what? I'm Lean Six Sigma, I'm a white belt. That's just like knowing karate. Knowing that you're a white belt in karate versus knowing you're a black belt in karate, totally two different things. So trying to equate the different things. Got a couple of comments I want to make sure we get in. Hey, Donnie, how are you? And she said, great conversation. The road to success isn't a straight line. You can have the perfect goal in mind, but life does throw curveballs. The most successful projects aren't rigid, and it jumped away just that quick, aren't rigid. They bend, adapt, and evolve. And I think that's a perfect way to tie all of this together, is that, yes, there is no straight line to success. There are going to be things that happen. We look at just from sterilizers alone. How many people have issues with their sterilizers on a daily basis? We know we have an end goal, but if something happens in that process, like where we are in Virginia right now, they have no water. So, hey, we got to bust and ship things off to get back to a point of even trying to do surgery. But nobody planned for this part of it. Rebecca said, efficiency drives a culture of success. I always ask, are we working at our most efficient and optimal levels before making big changes or purchases? Are we jumping to 100 without first walking through each step to identify those areas for improvement? And I guess that is our Gemba walk. That is our taking that spaghetti and unraveling it to where could we have cut out this middle portion and made that straight line there, versus, as Donnie said, everything isn't a straight line, but it's getting us to the point where we can see those obstacles, work through it, put something in place, and make sure that we happen. Jill, so in talking about all of the lean and talking about standardization, when you have people who are trying to make these changes and improvements, what is some advice when you give them about reaching out to their other partners or other departments to help them get to this point? Because a Gemba wall can be more than just the sterilization person, more than just the SPD person. It can be more than just the IP person. Sometimes it takes those other eyes to see that process and be like, wait, why did you do that? And being able to receive that recommendation or that suggestion. How do you get people to do that part?
Yeah, and so if you don't already know, you may have people who are very skilled in lean in your facility. You may have a whole department that are getting that are lean. We had a whole department in one of my last facilities that just did lean stuff. I would reach out to quality and see if they have somebody that specifically works on lean projects. If not, I guarantee you that your IP at least has some knowledge in lean. But it's really helpful to have somebody external to your department do those Gemba walks and kind of see with external eyes what some of the processes are and what some of those wasteful steps are. It's a little bit harder when you're in it every day to see the wasteful steps. It's easier for somebody else who maybe isn't to question and to say, why do we do this? Or why do we do this? And that actually will be a lot easier to start your lean project. And one of the things I just wanted to close with, you heard Kenneth say Kaizen, you heard me say value stream map. And as you're starting to learn about all of these lean tools, some of them take a lot longer than others. And so if you say like, I'm one person and I want to start this, so I don't have a lot of time, I'm just going to be doing it like in between my other stuff. A 5S might be a perfect place to start. If you're a leader and you're being given dedicated time, a Kaizen event might be better. Sometimes those can take a while. Rapid improvement events take a while. So it kind of depends on the amount of time you have, the amount of people and support that you have, to see which event or which project you start with. So as you start to learn some of these techniques, maybe a fishbone diagram is all you have time to do right now, but that's okay. Just start
Look at that
somewhere.
CHL coming out. Look at that CHL coming out. Fishbone. I hear it. I hear it. I know it. You got a couple of Denard don't want you to be done. So he asked the question and then Sarah jumped in the answer. So we're going to get both of those
Sarah
up.
got my back.
Denard said, when do you quantify those? I think it said, when do you quantify those results and then put it into a policy? At what stage does one quantify their data and actually make your process a policy? And Sarah said, we put it in an SOP and call it the best known way today. I love that, because you should strive for continuous improvement. So you're gathering all this data.
Policy too. I caution people to make things policy, because once it's policy, it's set, it's done. You're held to it all the time. And so if it's something that needs to be a policy, absolutely. But I would just say, make sure that if it's policy, just know you're held to it by any regulatory agency that comes in. But an SOP is more like a protocol. So like Sarah said, you can always change it, update it as you continually improve. But a policy, you're going to be held to, and you'll get cited if you're not following it.
And Regina said it depends on the scope of the project.
That's true.
So that's when you're saying, when you're taking all of this data, you're compiling it. And no, you're right. The moment you make it a policy, that means that anybody that comes looking, if you're not doing it that way, that's definitely a citation. So we want to make sure that you're doing the right things. Everybody, while I have Jill here, we're going to actually do our drawing. So if you definitely have put IP in the comment, so we can see the drawing live. Jill's going to be here to help me announce the winner. Are we ready? Has everybody put their IPs in the comment? Is IP in the comment? Are we ready? Okay. And Jill, you can count us down to the drawing. You can give them a 5-4. You can go 3-2. However you want to do it.
3, 2, 1. Woo-hoo. Is that how I'm supposed to do it? Okay. Yay! Carol!
And we have a winner. Carol Malone is our winner for this week. So Carol, if you are still here, you have to come back next week. Let us know that you are here, and you will receive your $25 gift card. So thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for putting the IPs in the comments. Thank you for being a part of the show. So as I get Jill to round us out for tonight, Jill, anybody wanting to start a lean project, anybody wanting to learn more about the lean processes or the different things, what advice do you give that new manager or that new director who has been through a Gemba walk, who has had some citations, or who just see their plain, efficiency not where they want it to be? What advice do you give them to get them to that next level?
I would say first start by asking your own leadership to see what kind of training you can have or go to if you haven't had any training. I also think there's some LinkedIn learning trainings that you can do for Lean Six Sigma. Don't quote me on that, but I think there might be. But you probably have some through your organization as well. Your quality department may even have some. But first, educate yourself as much as possible. Just start having your eyes open, learn as much as you can about lean. Once you start having that kind of lean eye, you'll start seeing things in your everyday life that you're like, oh my God, that's so many wasted steps right there. I cannot believe they're doing it that way. Like even when you like go to the grocery store or out somewhere. And so you'll start to see it in your everyday life, and it'll be so easy to spot things in your own department the more that you learn.
Family, you heard it here with Jill, our resident IP guru queen, as people have said. She's the queen. She's the queen. But definitely, if you need any help doing anything or getting information, definitely reach out to Jill. You can definitely reach out to me, and we can get you on the right path to getting your departments some of that, information, just to say, hey, this is something I want to be interested in. And then, like she said, going to your leadership, seeing what you have already established at your facility, and there may be classes and stuff that's already out there, and we can help you look into that. But family, this has been Time to Talk. It has been a pleasure. Jill, thank you. Thank you. Hey, Lean. Are your departments doing those things that are helping you become more efficient, helping you get to quality, helping you get ready for the innovations? Have you thought about what those steps are? If you have not, let us help you get there. Rebecca even said, I need help finding a reputable place to get my black belt. Again, these are things that we can help you explore. Definitely reach out to us and, let us get you there. But family, it's been a Time to Talk. Y'all know where we at. Same place, same time next week, 8 o'clock on the dot. We are here. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again soon. Thank you to RST Automation. Thank you to Incision Care. Thank you, Jill. It's been a pleasure. Family, I'll see y'all again next week. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.